China's most dreaded words have now been spoken. Taiwan has openly rejected China's united front. China is reacting strongly. Today, we'll examine this issue. On his second inauguration anniversary, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te firmly rejected China's unification tactics. Lai highlighted that over 10 million Taiwanese elected their president in the first direct election, realizing popular sovereignty through democratization, which must be preserved. He also said Taiwan's strategic goal is to maintain peace and stability, and that it is open to healthy exchanges with China based on equality and dignity. He firmly rejected United Front tactics that present unification as peace, drawing a clear line. He said that calling it the Republic of China, Taiwan, or just Taiwan shows they're already a sovereign independent nation. This statement has really triggered China. China is extremely wary of any moves by Taiwan to pursue independence. When President Lai Ching-te made a similar statement, it sparked an uproar in China, prompting a response from the Chinese Ministry of Defense. They warned the Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan that spending money or buying weapons is futile, like a mantis stopping a cart or an egg hitting a rock. They stressed that using force for independence leads to death, and national reunification is the only hopeful future. They added that Lai Ching-te's authorities are working with external forces to push for independence, disregarding the nation, public interest, and mainstream opinion in Taiwan, which causes tension and instability. They also made chilling remarks. The Chinese military remains highly vigilant and has directly warned Taiwan that it will firmly oppose any Taiwan independence efforts and protect national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Taiwan is now facing a major crisis at home and abroad. Domestically, tensions between the Democratic Progressive Party and Kuomintang are at their highest. In particular, there was an attempt led by the Kuomintang to impeach President Lai Ching-te, but it was rejected. Recently, the Lai Ching-te administration also submitted a special national defense budget proposal. The Lai Ching-te administration allocated a budget of 59 trillion won to keep China in check. However, the Kuomintang strongly opposed it, approving only 37 trillion won, which is about 2/3 of the original amount. When the defense budget needed an increase, they reduced it instead. Additionally, much of the approved budget will go toward buying American-made weapons, while all funding for projects to develop and procure Taiwanese-made missiles and drones was cut. The Kuomintang cited two reasons for these cuts. They argued the government's budget proposal had many vague items that could enable corruption, justifying the cuts. The other reason was the argument that the defense budget shouldn't be increased because it could provoke China. In response, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan is strongly opposing this. The Democratic Progressive Party says Chinese military aircraft and warships are increasing pressure on Taiwan, and the opposition is using security issues for politics. In particular, they believe it is very dangerous to delay the passage of the defense budget when China is repeatedly conducting military activities that cross the median line of the Taiwan Strait and is even carrying out large-scale military exercises around Taiwan. Within the Democratic Progressive Party, dissatisfaction is rising as the Kuomintang is politicizing security issues by focusing only on dialogue with the United States about China, despite Taiwan facing direct military threats from China. As the conflict escalated, the United States started taking direct action. Raymond Green, the head of the American Institute in Taiwan's Taipei office, which effectively serves as the U.S. Embassy in Taiwan, publicly urged the Taiwanese legislature to quickly pass the special defense budget. A U.S. official has effectively made a public statement pressuring Taiwan on its internal budget issue. Raymond Green stressed that the special defense budget is crucial for Taiwan's security. He said it clearly demonstrates Taiwan's resolve to defend itself to the international community, sends a signal, and is essential for securing Taiwan's key defense capabilities. In particular, the budget includes not only the purchase of the latest American-made advanced weapons, but also strengthening drone capabilities and expanding air defense systems. The budget also includes projects to prepare for the possibility of a Chinese military landing, such as missile development and the establishment of coastal defense systems. The United States currently believes that the pace of the Chinese military's buildup is much faster than expected. So the United States believes Taiwan must strengthen its military as quickly as possible. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command and Congress have repeatedly raised concerns about delays in Taiwan's defense budget. The United States is very wary that if Taiwan cannot strengthen its own defense capabilities, China may see this as a weakness. On the other hand, the Kuomintang does not oppose the expansion of the defense budget itself. However, they argue that the details of the budget proposal submitted by the Democratic Progressive Party government are unclear and that the scale is excessively large. They also worry that if Taiwan relies too much on American weapons, it could become overly tied to U.S. strategy. Because of this, there is a direct clash within Taiwan between those who believe security should be the top priority and those who think managing tensions with China is more important. On top of that, the conflict between the ruling and opposition parties in Taiwan has reached its peak. Lai Ching-te's administration has pledged to increase the defense budget to 5% of GDP by 2030, but the Kuomintang continues to oppose it, preventing the budget bill from being passed. In addition, Kuomintang chairman Zheng Liyuan visited Beijing and was seen holding talks with President Xi Jinping. Afterwards, China emphasized in response to Chairman Zheng Liyuan's visit that both sides of the strait belong to one China, that everyone is Chinese, and that they are all one family. And they said that matters between the two sides of the strait are family affairs for compatriots on both sides, so they should naturally be discussed and handled within the family. They also stated that compatriots on both sides have enough wisdom and ability to resolve their own issues well. They also criticized the Democratic Progressive Party, accusing the DPP of slandering to pursue Taiwan independence. They also pointed out that the DPP is engaging in smear campaigns and corruption, and that they have failed to win the hearts of the people. Zheng Liyuan went even further, stating that the political foundation of the 1992 consensus and opposition to Taiwan independence remains valid over time, and has once again proven to be the cornerstone of current cross-strait relations. The 1992 consensus refers to the agreement between China and Taiwan in 1992 to recognize one China, but each side uses its own name. He emphasized the importance of maintaining this agreement. Zheng Liyuan also criticized the DPP, saying that their efforts to build up military strength are essentially preparations for war, and joined China in condemning the DPP. Zheng Liyuan also visited the Sun Yat-sen Mausoleum and mentioned Japan more than 11 times, unusually highlighting Japan's responsibility as the historical background for the current conflict between China and Taiwan. He stressed that Japan suppressed Taiwanese society and sentiment, and the wounds from Japanese imperialism during the First Sino-Japanese War remain unhealed between the two sides. The Democratic Progressive Party government is generally pro-Japanese. Experts say these comments aim to counter the DPP's anti-China criticism. Since President Trump suggested using arms sales to Taiwan as a bargaining chip in China-Taiwan talks, Taiwan has appeared quite embarrassed. However, when President Trump was later asked whether he planned to call Lai Ching-te, the president of Taiwan, before making a decision on arms sales to Taiwan, he said he would talk to the Taiwanese president, which somewhat settled the issue for the time being. But this, in turn, provoked China once again. Since 1979, when China and the United States established diplomatic relations, there has never been a direct conversation between a sitting US president and the president of Taiwan. But when President Trump said he would call directly, China reacted extremely sensitively, saying it was an act that undermined the One China principle. Lai Ching-te, the president of Taiwan, said on the 21st that he is willing to discuss the matter with President Trump, but the specific timing of the call has not been decided. However, there is an even more serious issue here, which is the atmosphere within the United States. Currently, the US is managing multiple fronts at the same time. First, the issue of supporting the war in Ukraine has not yet been resolved. As the prolonged conflict with Russia continues, there is considerable fatigue within the US regarding continued support. On top of that, the situation in the Middle East is also very unstable. With the Iran issue, the Red Sea crisis, and the Israel issue overlapping, US strategic assets are continuously being moved to the Middle East. At the same time, the US is also working to contain China. The US is monitoring Chinese military movements throughout the entire Indo-Pacific region, including the South China Sea and around Taiwan. As a result, the US military burden is steadily increasing. Because of this, there is growing debate within the US about whether it can really handle the Taiwan issue as well. In particular, some in the US conservative camp view the prospect of American troops directly entering a war to defend Taiwan as a heavy burden. The argument is that since the US is already handling Ukraine and the Middle East, risking a full-scale clash with China would be too risky. On the other hand, US security experts believe that if Taiwan is lost, America's entire influence in Asia could be shaken. Even in the US, although there's consensus on defending Taiwan, opinions differ on the scope and method of intervention. Still, the main US military strategy remains clear. If China actually takes extreme action such as invading Taiwan, the likelihood of US intervention is very high. The main issue is time. It takes a while for the US to deploy troops, carrier groups, and strategic assets. So Taiwan's ability to withstand the initial attack is crucial. Taiwan is increasing its defense budget, drone capabilities, missile production, and coastal defenses to maximize this early resistance and delay a Chinese landing, buying time for US and allied intervention. However, internal political conflicts are blocking the defense budget, especially for drones, missiles, and asymmetric capabilities, raising concerns in the US. The US worries that without adequate self-defense, China may feel more confident about military action, so it keeps pressuring Taiwan's legislature to approve the defense budget.